It was a hot afternoon in the heart of downtown when Lisa, a hardworking single mother, received a knock on the door that would change her life. The sound was sharp and deliberate, sending chills down her spine. She opened the door to see Mr. Walton, her landlord, standing there with a smug smile and an official-looking paper in his hand. Mr. Walton had never been kind to Lisa or any of the other black tenants. From the moment Lisa had moved into the apartment with her 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, she felt the weight of his disdain. It wasn't just in his words, but in his actions, raising the rent without notice, refusing to fix broken appliances, and giving the cold shoulder anytime she approached him for help. "Afternoon, Miss Carter," he said, sneering as he handed her the paper. "I'm afraid this is your eviction notice. You've got 30 days to pack up and leave." Lisa's heart sank as she stared at the paper in disbelief. "Eviction? For what? I've paid my rent on time every month, Mr. Walton." He smirked, crossing his arms. "The building's undergoing some renovations. And frankly, I don't think you and your kind are the right fit for the future of this place." Lisa's blood boiled. She knew exactly what he meant by "your kind." She had faced this sort of racism her whole life. But this was her home. The only stability Sophie had ever known. "Mr. Walton, this isn't fair. You can't just kick us out for no reason." "Oh, but I can. And I have," he said coldly. 30 days. I suggest you start packing." With that, he turned on his heel and walked away, leaving Lisa standing in the doorway, trembling with anger and fear. What would she do? Where would they go? Lisa sat on the couch that night, tears streaming down her face as Sophie played quietly on the floor, unaware of the turmoil swirling around her mother. Lisa had worked so hard to provide for her daughter, juggling 2 jobs to pay the bills, but now it seemed like all her efforts had been for nothing. The weight of injustice pressed down on her chest, but she couldn't let it crush her. Not for Sophie's sake. She picked up her phone and called her best friend, Dana. "I got an eviction notice today," Lisa whispered, her voice shaking. "What? On what grounds?" Dana asked, shock evident in her voice. "He doesn't need grounds," Lisa said bitterly. "It's his building, and he's decided he doesn't want people like me living here." There was a pause before Dana spoke again, her tone firm and resolute. "Lisa, you need to fight this. Don't let that racist jerk push you out of your home." But what could Lisa do? She didn't have the money or resources to take on someone as powerful as Mr. Walton. Still, something in Dana's words ignited a fire inside her. She wasn't going to go down without a fight. Lisa started researching her rights, reading up on tenant laws, and reaching out to local housing advocates. With their help, she filed a complaint against Mr. Walton, hoping to delay the eviction long enough to come up with a plan. But time was running out, and Mr. Walton was getting more aggressive. As the days passed, Lisa could feel the tension rising. Every time she saw Mr. Walton, he gave her a smug, condescending look, as if he had already won. But Lisa wasn't backing down. She continued to fight, even though the odds were stacked against her. With only a week left before the eviction deadline, Lisa was running out of options. She had packed most of her belongings and was preparing for the worst when she received an unexpected phone call. "Is this Lisa Carter?" the voice on the other end asked. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Anthony Lewis. I represent a group of investors interested in purchasing the building you currently reside in." Lisa frowned, unsure of what to make of the call. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because, Ms. Carter, we've heard about your situation, and we believe we can help." "Help?" Lisa had heard enough empty promises in her life to be skeptical, but something about Anthony's tone intrigued her. "We're prepared to make an offer to buy the building outright, but we need someone who understands the tenant's struggles, someone who's been on the receiving end of Mr. Walton's mistreatment." Lisa's heart raced. "And what does that have to do with me?" "We'd like to offer you the chance to become a co-owner of the building, Ms. Carter. With our resources and your insight into the community, we believe we can turn this building around." The words hit Lisa like a bolt of lightning. Co-owner? It sounded too good to be true. Was this real? I don't have the money to. Don't worry about that. We'll take care of the finances. All we need from you is your commitment and your vision for a better future for this building and its tenants. Lisa was stunned. After everything she had been through, this was her chance to not only save her home, but to stand up to Mr. Walton once and for all. The day of the eviction arrived, and Mr. Walton stood in the hallway, waiting for Lisa to come out. He had a satisfied grin on his face, ready to watch her leave in defeat. But when Lisa opened the door, she didn't look broken. She looked determined. "Ready to go, Miss Carter?" Mr. Walton sneered. Lisa stepped out into the hallway, a folder of papers in her hand. "Actually, Mr. Walton, I'm not going anywhere." Mr. Walton's smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" "I'd like you to meet the new owners of this building," Lisa said, handing him the papers. "And as of today, I'm one of them." Mr. Walton's eyes widened in disbelief as he scanned the documents. His face turned red with anger. This can't be." "Oh, it is," Lisa said, her voice steady and strong. "You see, Mr. Walton, you underestimated me. You thought you could push me around, but you were wrong. And now, you'll be the one packing your things." Mr. Walton stammered, completely blindsided by the turn of events. "You can't do this." "I already have," Lisa replied, her tone cold and resolute. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises." The irony wasn't lost on Mr. Walton as he stood there, speechless, realizing that the tables had truly turned. As Mr. Walton stormed out of the building in a fury, Lisa stood tall, feeling the weight of victory settling on her shoulders. But just as she thought her battle was over, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown number. "This isn't over, Lisa. Watch your back." Lisa's heart raced as she stared at the screen. Who was behind this message? And what was coming next? Lisa's hands trembled as she stared at the message on her phone. "This isn't over, Lisa. Watch your back." Her mind raced, wondering who could be behind this ominous threat. Could it be Mr. Walton, bitter over losing the building and his power? Or was it someone else entirely, someone even more dangerous lurking in the shadows? "Mom, are you okay?" Sophie's small voice snapped Lisa back to reality. She quickly locked her phone and forced a smile, not wanting to scare her daughter. "I'm fine, sweetie," Lisa said softly, brushing a hand over Sophie's curls. "Just a little tired." But Lisa wasn't fine. The message had shaken her to her core. She had worked so hard to protect Sophie and to provide them both with a stable home. Now, just when she had turned the tide, this new threat loomed over her like a dark cloud. That night, Lisa tossed and turned in bed, her mind consumed with fear. Who was behind the threat? And what did they want from her? But one thing was clear. Whoever it was, they wanted to make sure Lisa didn't feel safe. And as a mother, that was unacceptable. The next morning, Lisa decided to push the fear aside and focus on the building. She was now a co-owner, and that came with responsibilities. She spent the day walking through the hallways, introducing herself to tenants, and making a list of much-needed repairs. Despite the threat hanging over her, Lisa felt a new sense of purpose. But it wasn't long before things started going wrong. First, the water in several apartments was cut off without warning. Then, strange leaks started appearing in the ceilings, and electrical issues left tenants without power for hours. Lisa immediately contacted the maintenance team, but when she reviewed the building's records, she was horrified to discover that Mr. Walton had neglected nearly every major repair for years. The building was in far worse shape than she had realized, and the sabotage didn't stop there. That evening, as Lisa returned from picking Sophie up from school, she found the front door to her apartment wide open. Her heart leapt into her throat. Someone had broken in. "Sophie, stay close to me," she whispered, gripping her daughter's hand tightly as they cautiously stepped inside. The living room was in shambles, drawers pulled open, furniture overturned, and papers scattered everywhere. Lisa's breath caught in her chest. Whoever had sent her that warning had taken things to the next level. They were trying to scare her, to make her feel unsafe in her own home. But Lisa refused to back down. She immediately called the police, but when the officers arrived, they seemed dismissive. "Are you sure it wasn't just a random break-in? Maybe kids looking for something to steal?" one officer asked, his tone indifferent. "No, this was deliberate," Lisa insisted. "I received a threatening message yesterday, and now this." The officer gave her a skeptical look. "Do you have any enemies, ma'am?" Lisa thought of Mr. Walton. Could he really be behind this? Was he angry enough to resort to breaking into her home? "I don't know," Lisa admitted, her voice steady. "But I need you to take this seriously. I'm not going to let anyone scare me out of here." The officer gave a half-hearted nod, filing his report before leaving. But Lisa could tell that they didn't care. It was up to her to protect herself and Sophie. The following days were tense. Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time she left the apartment, she felt eyes on her. Every creak of the floor, every knock on the door sent her heart racing. Then, one morning, as Lisa was meeting with her fellow co-owners to discuss the building's repairs, Mr. Walton made a sudden and unwelcome appearance. He barged into the meeting room, his face twisted with rage. "You think this is over, Lisa?" he spat, glaring at her with venomous eyes. "You think you can just waltz in here and take what's mine?" Lisa stood her ground, refusing to be intimidated. "It's not yours anymore, Mr. Walton. You lost. Fair and square. Fair and square." He barked a laugh, filled with bitterness. "You've made a grave mistake, Miss Carter. You don't know who you're messing with." The other investors exchanged uneasy glances, but Lisa didn't flinch. "This building belongs to us now. You need to accept that and move on." But Mr. Walton wasn't listening. His eyes burned with fury, and for the first time, Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. He wasn't just angry, he was unhinged. "You'll regret this, Lisa. Mark my words." With that, he stormed out of the room, leaving a trail of tension in his wake. Lisa felt her confidence waver for a moment. Mr. Walton's words echoed in her mind, and she couldn't help but wonder what he had planned next. But she wouldn't let fear control her. She had come too far to give up now. A few days later, while reviewing old documents from the building's records, Lisa made a startling discovery. Buried deep in the files was evidence of illegal activities, money laundering, fraudulent repairs, and falsified building permits, all tied to Mr. Walton. Lisa's heart pounded in her chest. This was it. This was the leverage she needed to finally expose Mr. Walton for the crook he really was. But as she prepared to hand over the documents to the authorities, something strange happened. The power in the building went out. The entire place was plunged into darkness. Lisa's phone buzzed in her pocket. Another message. "I told you to watch your back." Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway outside her apartment. Lisa's pulse quickened. Whoever had sent the message was nearby. She grabbed Sophie and bolted for the door, her heart racing as they ran down the darkened stairwell. But as they reached the lobby, Lisa's worst fear came true. Mr. Walton was waiting for them. "I warned you, Lisa," he growled, stepping toward her with a menacing look in his eyes. "Now it's time to make sure you understand the consequences." Before Lisa could react, the front doors of the building burst open. A group of men in suits rushed in. Authorities? But whose side were they on? Lisa stood frozen, clutching Sophie tightly, as Mr. Walton grinned darkly. "Looks like you're out of time, Lisa," he sneered. "This is only the beginning." The tension builds as Lisa faces a new, even more dangerous battle. Will she expose Mr. Walton's crimes in time, or has she underestimated how far he's willing to go to keep his secrets buried? Stay tuned and follow for part 2. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for updates on our latest videos.